Welcome back to another video of Chem 101. This is the fourth video in the Nomenclature series, and in this video I want to talk about naming ionic compounds with variable charges. Now, there's a difference between the formulas with variable charges and the formulas that have set charges that we looked at in the video before. And the difference comes about when we're trying to write the formula when we're given the name. So for example, if someone told us to write the formula for sodium chloride, right? Sodium chloride. Sodium chloride. Well, we know what the ion of sodium looks like. It's Na+. And we know what the ion of chlorine looks like. It's Cl-. So 1 plus and 1 minus pair together, and we get sodium chloride. So this would be the formula for sodium chloride. But what about iron chloride? As it turns out, there are different kinds of iron ions. We can actually have an iron 2+ or an iron 3+, and a copper 1+, a copper 2+. So these are examples of ions that have multiple charges, or elements, sorry, that can form multiple ions. Or ions with different charges. And we see this in the transition elements. So our periodic table, rough approximation of one, here in the center here, we call it transition elements. So it's these transition elements that actually tend to form multiple charges. So when we're trying to go back and write the formula for iron chloride, we can come up with multiple possibilities. Is it an iron with 2 chlorines? Since we know chlorine is Cl-, it would take 2 chlorines to pair up with this ion, but it would take 3 chlorines to pair up with this iron 3+. So which is it? Which is the correct formula for iron chloride? Well, as it turns out, the name, as we've written it, is wrong. So if I modify our formula, it's the metal, the name of the metal, plus the charge, or the number of the charge, plus the nonmetal with "ide." So what we can do here to fix, or to pick which one we're talking about, let's say we're talking about this one here. Well, this is the iron ion that has a 3+ charge. And we know that because it's paired up with 3 chlorines. And chlorines all have a -1 charge. So if we were naming this guy right here, we would say iron 3 chloride. And we use the Roman numeral for 3. So this is iron 3 chloride. So what would we name this guy right here? Well, if this is 2 chlorines, we know that this is iron 2+. So this is the 2+ ion. We would name this compound as iron 2 chloride. It would have a 2 here if we were talking about this one. All right, what about down here? Copper oxide. Again, there's a problem. Is this copper oxide? Is this copper oxide? Because copper forms more than one ion, we need to be more specific. So in here, we'll write copper. Now, if we're talking about this guy, what do we write? Well, we know oxygen is 2-, or we've memorized that. So copper here must be 2+, because these are always going to form neutral molecules. So this would be copper 2 oxide. And if we were naming this one, well, this one looks a little more complicated. But we would figure out how to draw this when we know more about writing molecular formulas. So again, this has a 2- for oxygen, but there's 3 oxygens. So we have to take that 2- and multiply it by 3. And that tells us that the total negative part of this molecule is -6. Well, that means that all of the positive parts are also +6. It also has to be equal and opposite. So +6. But there's 2 coppers. So it's not that one copper is +6 and the other copper is nothing. They are both evenly sharing this charge. So each copper here must be 3+. And 3 plus times 2 is what gives us that plus 6. So this would be copper 3 oxide. Copper 3 oxide. So when we're naming ionic compounds that have variable charges, we need to go one step further and actually say the number of the charge. So iron 2 chloride or copper 3 oxide. And just remember, when we have common ions that don't have multiple charges, we don't have to worry about that. Sodium chloride can only be written this way. All right, so in the next video, well, I feel like I need to make 2 videos. We need to make a video about how to write molecular formulas, but in the next video, let's continue with nomenclature and naming, and we'll name some acids.